Hi, everybody. This is Robin Switzer with KetoCon, and I am here with Dorian Greenow from Keto Mojo. And we are here to talk all about the fact that Dorian is going to be speaking at KetoCon this year. He's been on our waiting list for a while. We've been trying to get him to speak at KetoCon for a long time, and finally, he's available. And Keto Mojo will be sponsoring and exhibiting at KetoCon again this year, and we're thrilled to have them back. And so here we are. Dorian, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, Robin. Thank you so much for inviting me. And we are certainly looking forward to KetoCon this year. It is always a highlight of our year to catch up with all of our friends within the community and the tribe and see some of the new delicious products that might be like coming out. And I hear that you're kind of like moving a little bit into almost the biohacking space, which sounds even more exciting.
Yeah, we are. I couldn't have planned it better myself. I mean, this was always the vision that I had for the event. However, it's just kind of happening organically. We've a lot of companies that are in that space have shown an interest in attending. And we wanted the event to become more inclusive of other protocols, with the underlying theme being the education around the value of utilizing ketosis to improve your metabolic health. And I mean, we understand that there are a lot of other protocols that people utilize, but we wanted to really grow the event, and it's just happening naturally. I'm really excited about it. There will be some food products at KetoCon this year, but not nearly as many as what you've seen in the past. And I'm interested and excited to see how the event continues to grow as well. So thank you.
I find the biohacking space, I thoroughly enjoy it. I mean, Dr. Naisha Winters, who wrote The Metabolic Approach to Cancer, she talks about the terrain and, just nutritional ketosis is just one aspect of the many different aspects that we need to look at and address so that we can live our most optimized and healthy selves. So I think it's great that we're going to be seeing that. And I think for the visitors, it'll be something addition that it's going to add to the event, which is always fantastic when you get a greater degree of diversity and knowledge as well. I think that the knowledge of the speakers that you have on this conference is absolutely fantastic, and obviously incorporating more about farming. I live in a farming community. I mean, farming community, it's not cattle, it's wine. Let's be real about our farming
that
community.
Counts.
It does count, yeah, but not all of it is keto. But it's to actually bring in that holistic view when we look at regenerative agriculture and those things.
Yeah, well, I'm really, really excited about that. I think we're kind of at a tipping point where people are starting to understand the importance of what they put in their mouth. And now it's important for us to educate the community on understanding where that food comes from. Yeah. So the regenerative agriculture panel should shed some light for a lot of people.
And hopefully I'm almost at the end there and my goal with my presentation, which is the value of glucose and ketone testing for patient, practitioner, and society, kind of like we'll try and touch on all of those things and bring it round in a form of closure, if you can see it in that way.
Yes, and I appreciate that you willing to take that spot. And I think it's going to be awesome, because I think a lot of people will stay till the end in order to hear your conversation, hear your presentation. So let's take a couple of steps back, because I've known you for a long time. I've known you and Gemma for a long time, but I'd love for the community to learn a little bit about why and how you started Keto Mojo. I know it was a struggle in the beginning. I remember talking to you guys when you were first launching and all the things you were trying to do. So could you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm delighted to. I mean, let's roll back the clock to 2015, and I was 47 pounds heavier than I am right now. I had all the biomarkers for metabolic syndrome. I was on antidepressants. I was burning through jobs quite rapidly. But before, where I'd had stable jobs for 8 or 9 years, now I was seeing the cycle was increasing as I was burning through where it was. And you could see that I was on this kind of like downward spiral. And a good friend of mine said, hey, you should try the ketogenic diet. And I'm like, I don't do diets. I'm like, I've seen Gemma do every single diet probably known to man, and never had any success. But I knew I had to do something. So I started reading up on like the works from Drs. Volek and Finney and the art and science of low carbohydrate living. I kind of like devoured every YouTube that was going on, learning about Dr. Eric Westman, about page 4. So I went on a well-regulated ketogenic diet. For me, it was like I tracked my macros for about 30 days just so I understood what foods I was eating. And then I was testing with an Abbott meter. And back in 2015, ketone strips were really expensive. They were like $4 or $5. And then I'm hunting around on the back streets of Amazon or eBay to try and find knockoff strips that had been bought in Australia and shipped over to America, because the Australian government was subsidizing ketone strips over there, and there was this whole back market that you could do. And I lost 47 pounds, and when you get that joie de vivre, I felt like I was 24 again. I was like, wow, this is pretty amazing. And you get that clarity of mind that comes on into play. And like, so I'm taking apart the strip and I'm looking, why is this $4 when it's these little pieces of plastic with a spacer bar and there's some enzyme that's just printed on it? It shouldn't be $4 or $5. So I drew up a list of 100 different manufacturers. I cross-matched that to the federal regulations, the 510K, and, to see who could do it. And the business plan was test 3 times a day for less than the cost of a latte. I wanted to get to $1 a strip, and I went to Gems with my fantastic plan. We're on the way down to yoga in the morning and like that. And I'm just going over the plan of what I want to do. It says like, hey, can I borrow some of the home equity line of credit to do this? And she goes, well, how much do you think you need? And I go, well, probably all of it. And there ensued a sort of like an argument as we're going down. We almost got to angry yoga by the time we got down there. But we worked our way through it. And, it did end up being the entire home equity line of credit. And then when we lost our house in the fires of 2017, we were growing quite rapidly at that stage. So it ended up being our entire possession money of everything that we'd owned in over 26 years of marriage, and then the house money itself. So if anybody else wants to go into business, come and see us at the entrepreneur session. I'll be happy to tell you of all the challenges of trying to debt finance up a company. But we became the #1 selling ketone meter in America on Amazon within 8 months. Wow. And the thing that, look, I'm pleased that we were able to do it, but it shouldn't have taken a husband and wife team to lower the cost of ketone testing in America and across the globe. Abbott could have done it at any time. Nova could have done it at any time. But it was the greed and avarice of these Fortune 500 companies that left a space for us to occupy. And that's, I know a lot of people like to talk about CGMs, and they go and they talk about Abbott, but like, you think CGMs are going to ever come down in price? No, they never brought down the cost of ketone testing. They're never going to bring down the price because they want to make as much money as possible. And when they say, oh, don't worry, it's free, it's covered on insurance, who's paying for it ultimately? Out of your premiums is what's going to come out of this thing. But for us, it's been a rocket ship ride. We've been extremely successful. We're now in 36 countries, and we use we use the wealth of America to open up into countries where it doesn't make any real economic sense, because we believe that this can actually affect a metabolic change. And we can see that through our My Mojo Health app. I have over 50 million data points that is within that. And we can see through these millions of ketone measurements and millions of glucose measurements, when somebody is in nutritional ketosis, they do have good glucose control. Right. I'm like, we're talking, I see an average blood glucose of about 101. If you think on a population wide, this is like 60,000 monthly users, we're having an average blood glucose of 100. That's absolutely amazing. No other doctor, and they're doing it on their own and on home. Some of them are obviously have coaches and stuff like that, but a lot of them, it's just from the information and the learnings that they get from the web, and they're testing and they adjust and guide. I call it the map and compass model. The roadmap is the roadmap of foods. So you're going through Italian foods, you're going through Thai foods or Indian foods. That's the roadmap. Right. And where the compass that just guides you to say, are you going the right way or the wrong way? And that's brilliant.
So I have to say that the training available on your website is really, really good. And I don't know if you still have it, but I know you used to have people that you could call to get help too, which I utilized quite a few times when I first started using Keto Mojo. So I think that's really exceptional. And what I really love about this story, I mean, of course, I love the highway to success, but the fact that this was kind of a crisis became your calling type of thing, which is the same thing for me. And I think for a lot of people that we see in this health optimization space, that people who experience some sort of crisis, whether it's health crisis or in most cases health crisis, through their recovery, found that there were opportunities, there were products that they needed in their own journey, and then they developed them and became successful companies. And I just love that crisis to calling kind of story. So what you're in all of these different countries today. You're the most popular meter. You and Gemma are hugely popular on social media with all of your outings, and at least I watch you all the time, all the places you go and the people you're with, enjoying life. But I know that there are a lot of things that you are working towards and things that you've done to improve or add more value to what you do. Do you want to talk a little bit about the websites that you've developed and the app that you've developed so that people can track their health journey?
Yeah, I would love to. So we were successful in selling a meter and strips. And when we first started, we just had the basic e-commerce site. It was like, hey, buy my meter, buy my strips. But quickly learning the community and seeing the journey that we went through, we realized that we needed to have more resources available. And like you talk about, having a crisis or having a moment in life, but we actually kind of need to try and get the information to people earlier. It is hard to fix metabolic damage, especially systemic metabolic damage that's happened over decades, which is what happened to me. I mean, I was 45 back in 2015. So you realize that I had been powering down carbohydrates from an early age, and this is what happened. And to reverse that's difficult. So we thought that, okay, let's change our site from being a selling site, an e-commerce site. And if you go to it, you'll find that the shop button is just way up in the top right-hand corner. It's just a tiny little area. But meanwhile, the site is giving you all the tools and resources for free. It's for free. We have over 220 different recipes. We have how-to guides. We've got macro calculators that is on that. I like to support other conferences as well, and we support Low Carb USA, which is part of the Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners now. And we license all of the presentations on that. So there's over 220 hours of videos of the leading clinicians and doctors and researchers, because this was quite high level stuff.
Sure.
So if people want to go down the rabbit hole, they can certainly go down the rabbit hole that is there. And all of that is given away for free because we didn't want to put a paywall in front of it. If you keep putting paywalls in front of everything, then it's really hard for you to affect metabolic change.
Right.
And in my mind, metabolic change is the most important thing, because if we fundamentally change the way that people spend, and this becomes really important, how you shop the outer aisle becomes really important, because that's the biggest power of voting you could ever done is from your purse. And this to me is like, if you do that, we will fundamentally change how farming can be done in America and globally. when we are now supporting different products, and these products, be it wonderfully grass-fed or holistic regenerative agriculture that is sequestering carbon, these are the things that we need to support. So that's what we wanted to do with the website. And then the next thing was like, okay, how do we then connect all of this together to be able for coaches and clinicians and users on their own to take that data and have something that is actionable, the compass to guide it, and the accountability. And that's what we built out with our app, our first generation app, which was what we call our classic app. There's the Keto Mojo app, but we also now have a second generation app that not a lot of people know about. We've been kind of quiet on it, which is our My Mojo Health app, which is a connected encrypted health cloud that not only can you connect to your data and see it on your dashboard or on your phone or your iPad, but you can also then connect it in with Chronometer and Carb Manager and Biocanic and Lifomic. So you have all of these different apps. We can now connect into different hospital systems, EHR systems, like Epic and Serbo and Athena. So now we have tools for the clinicians, and we've got tools for the users. And Gemma and I have invested over $2 million in creating this state-of-the-art platform, and we give it away for free. Again, we're utilizing the community who's supporting us to give back to the next community to get healthy and grow that out in the same way. Again, removing the paywalls, because Virta Health showed that through remote patient monitoring, just having the data is one thing, but it's how you utilize that data. They had a 74% retention rate. Now, if you take a look in adult epilepsy, they have about a 35 to 45% retention rate. So how did Virta almost double the effectiveness of what they were doing? And it was having the accountability, it was having that coach or that clinician that would work with them, who would see in real time when somebody fell off the wagon. Because how many of us have fallen off the wagon? We've all done it. Now, does the wagon continue on down the road, and then you wait for another 30 days or 60 days to go back and see your doctor or clinician, and they go, well, why did you fall off the wagon? If you can be caught in the moment, you can say, well, what happened? And it'll be like, you'll hear the story. It was Friday night. I was at work. It was Pizza Fridays. We always get together in the afternoon, and some of my colleagues were going just have a slice with us. It's okay. And I caved on in because I was stressed from some things that are happening at home. So I ate one slice and then it went to another. Well, then what you do is you give the coping strategy, which is, I tell you what, next time I want you to have 4 slices of pizza, but scrape off the top and put the garbage in the garbage. What people need is that coping strategy for the behavioral change. And that's kind of like what we're about, is how do we affect and give the tools to people so they can affect behavioral change, metabolic change, ergo farming.
That's awesome. Gosh, I think that you hit the nail on the head there, because everybody needs to feel that they are accountable to something or someone when they are not used to being accountable to themselves. And most of us with poor metabolic health for an extended period of time need that type of assistance, for sure.
Yeah, and Gemma and I, we took the journey together. So that was my accountability partner, and I also had the numbers and the data to back up of that the choices we're making were right. Because before we went keto, we were paleo. And I would think of paleo, that's the right bit, and I'd done a little bit of a reading on it, but wasn't seeing any results on the paleo aspect to it. Why wasn't I seeing any results? Because I was eating so many mango fruit leathers, it was unbelievable. I was mainlining fructose. And you kind of you now look at it with the knowledge set that you have, and you're going, well, of course, look, I was mainlining fructose. Of course, I wouldn't lose any weight there. I was just, I had substituted one drug for another drug, but it was just in another separate, different packaging. So that's all that it was. Once you removed the underlying problem, which is the sugar, it is the glucose. And let's be very clear, I think some people still do not understand that carbohydrates are sugar, all of them, period. And this, I think a lot of people want to dress it up and go, well, it's organic. It's ancient grains of the Aztecs. It's a Peruvian blue potato. How can this be bad?
Right.
But when you understand that every single carbohydrate, it's fundamental, will get turned into glucose within the body, and glucose is sugar. Once you understand that fundamental, and you cannot change that. Once you get to know that, then you're like, oh, okay, but I have a secondary fuel source that I could use. And I have to be very biased here. I actually think that nutritional ketosis is the default state for human beings. If you look back in history at what we used to eat ancestrally, we didn't have the mangoes. They were limited to a tiny, small tropical areas. They weren't to the extent that they were right now.
Right.
And that we ate a ketogenic diet. There was a great Japanese study that was done on mothers on the second and third trimesters, where they were measuring them, and they were in a light ketotic state. They then measured the baby as they were born, and that child was also in a light ketotic state, 0.3s, 0.4s, 0.5s, but the placenta was at 2.95, which is massive orders of magnitude. Why has the placenta got so much ketones in it? It's the buffer zone. And if you think that when the baby was growing, what do we want? We want brain development is the most important thing in child development, and it's being fed ketones on an IV intravenously during the process, and then it gets born, and now it's being fed a mother's milk, which is also ketotic.
Right.
Now it's gone from being intravenously fed to being pulse fed. Why do we have these wonderful chubby babies? Is because they have enough fat on their bodies to metabolize that fat into ketones and to use those ketones for energy when they're not getting breastfed. So they have their own buffer zone that is being put on in for them. And so now you've got brain development being the most important. Ketosis is the most important. I think the big question that needs to be sort of like answered is, we do not need carbs for brain development, and we can do it especially well.
Right.
Ketones, and the likes of Dr. Robert Sivas or Dr. Ken Berry, who are practicing what they preach with their own children. Obviously, Maria Emmerich, she's got her sugar-free kids as well. These are the N=1s and N=2s, where hopefully, as we see them grow over the periods of time, we'll see greater data that will come on into play. We as adults can make the choice as to whether or not we believe ketosis is the default state. I'm firmly in that camp. I wouldn't eat carbs. It's like having a cigarette to me. I know one's not going to kill me, but if I continue on smoking, I will have a problem.
Yeah, and I've learned the same myself, in that there's an old adage: one is too many and the bag isn't enough, something like that. And it's kind of like that. That's how carb sensitive I am. So, a half a baked potato might not be so bad for someone else, but a half a baked potato is never enough for me.
Yeah.
And so I personally, and that's why I still stay so committed to all of this, is that this is the way I live my life. I choose to, but I also have to, because I do not want to go back to what I was like before I discovered all of this. And you mentioned mental health. And a state of depression that you dealt with when you had, prior to you discovering the ketogenic diet. I had the same thing. And I was in my late 40s when I discovered it as well. So, and now I'm 60, getting ready to turn 61. And I do see a big difference between myself and my contemporaries who have not changed their diet. And that, to me, that's my own N=1, because I have a point of comparison. But back to the ketones.
On mental health, I think it's fantastic what we're seeing the Bazooki Foundation doing. They've put together a war chest of over $45 million, and the amount of work that they are now doing for mental health and utilizing ketogenic diets for that is astronomical. I mean, we saw Verta and Sami Inkanen and Dr. Volek and Dr. Finney, the work that they did with Verta kind of like cut through on the type 2 diabetes disease state, but it opened up the doorway to a lot of other disease states because of the quality of the work that they've done. But now we're involved with the University of Edinburgh with Dr. Ian Campbell on the bipolar study that is being done there, and several other clinical trials and studies. But we look at mental health. I think it's the next large bastion. I thought it would actually be cancer, but it appears that it's going to be mental health will be, I think, a massive turning point. And this comes to the question is, do ketones matter? You know, maybe for weight loss, knowing that you're in ketosis is great, but I don't think the number maybe matters too much. But for somebody who is schizophrenic or bipolar or has huge problems of depression, do ketones matter for them? Is there a certain zone? I find that when I'm between 1.1 and 1.7 on my free circulating ketones, that's the right zone for me. When I'm lower than that, because I kept a mood diary for a while, is that when I'm lower than that, I kind of like, I'm in that more depressive state that kind of comes in and morose and procrastinate and the rest of it. When I'm higher than that, I get in that more hypermania. My team hates me when I'm like that because I've got all the ideas. Let's go do this, let's go do that. And it's sort of like, it's like, there needs to be a happy medium here. I mean, keto does not take the loco out of the individual. You've got to remember it's still there, but it does give you a buffer on your zone that you can, you're more capable and more cognizant of the challenges that you as an individual face. And so I think in this mental health world, this is a huge difference. And people talk about, you know, all of the challenges that we see in schools and ADHD, and they want to give them Adderall and these chemicals to try and mask what is the underlying root cause, which is the brain energy. And we come back to the brain energy, and we talk about originally as children being born in ketosis and neurological development. I think this could be a massive change to society just on that one piece.
Right. Absolutely. One of the things that I think that people who are familiar with the ketogenic diet and monitoring their glucose, monitoring their ketone levels, there seems to be some confusion on the GKI number, what it really means, what it stands for. Can you provide some clarity to that?
Yeah, GKI, glucose ketone index, first put forward by Professor Thomas Seyfried of Boston College. And it's the relationship between your glucose measurement in millimoles divided by your ketone measurement in millimoles. Now, glucose in millimoles. In America, we measure it in milligrams per deciliter. So you have to take your milligram per deciliter measurement, divide it by 18, and that will give you your millimoles. And then you divide that by your ketone, and it will give you a ratio 1 to 10, as Thomas Seyfried put forward. So sort of like 6 to 10 is very light ketosis. 3 to kind of like 6, you're in moderate to heavy ketosis. 1 to 3, you're in a high therapeutic level of ketosis, and under 1 is the highest level, but it's also super, 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 super hard to attain. And again, this comes back to, you know, so some camps will say that, well, don't go chasing ketones, chase results. That's Louis DeVilson or Tyler Cartwright or the Keto Gains guys, and I love that approach. But it has to be, what is the person's why?
Sure.
The person's why for cancer or polycystic kidney disease or mental health or epilepsy is going to be very, very different to type 2 diabetes or weight loss or autoimmune.
Right.
And so what it is for Seyfried, he was born out of cancer as a metabolic disease on the mouse and rat models that he was utilizing. And he realized that when he got the glucose lower enough, the cancer was feeding on glucose. This is the Otto Warburg, and the Warburg approach was that is that the cancer feeds on glucose, on sugar, in an anaerobic method fermentation. So if you could reduce down the glucose sufficient enough, you could then reduce the food source for the cancer. You could slow it down or maybe starve it out a little bit, necrotizing the tumor. And then you utilize the ketones as the second, as the default fuel source. But also ketones are more than just fuel. They're a signaling molecule throughout the body that can upregulate and downregulate genetic expression. So it's ketones could even be, for some people might even call it a hormone, maybe, if you see some of the work that is coming out. So you have this profound effect on the body, on the energy, on the mitochondria. I mean, Volek and Finney showed that it takes 12 weeks to get fat adapted because your mitochondria change. So what happens is, as you get into nutritional ketosis and you stay in it and you go through that fat adaptation phase, you are changing your body on a cellular level. And I think that, to me, is such one of the most engaging pieces, that you realize that you are fundamentally making a change by what you are eating and consuming. And so this GKI, when it started in the cancer world, is now moving more into other areas, because what we're seeing is people are paying attention to their glucose. Now, I like glucose, but I don't like glucose. And I'm going to kind of like tell you why. I think ketones are actually more important for the majority of people, because if you are in nutritional ketosis, you will have good glucose control, period. And so, the question is which direction do you want to go? Using a glucometer, it will tell you when you're having an excursion. You've eaten a potato, great, your blood glucose could go up. We all know that. Nobody's blood glucose is not going to go up from eating a potato. It will all go up. It's just the speed of the freight train that's going to hit you. The freight train will still hit you. If I have a Coca-Cola, that freight train is going to hit me a lot faster than a potato.
Right.
But it's still going to do exactly the same thing, just over a different period of time. And so testing ketones means you have good glucose control. But then when you're looking at a cancer diagnosis or other disease states, measuring the both of them gives you, the levers that you can understand it. Now when I test, I'm always in ketosis. The need to test diminishes, and usually it's testing for when we're travel and for trying a different source that we're not too sure of whether or not somebody has or has not, or am I going to fret the carrot in a beef bourguignon? No, I won't, but I will fret the noodles that it's on and just say, hey, can you do me the beef bourguignon without the noodles? They always get a strange look on that, but they eventually do it, and you realize that you've got all the delicious flavor, and the meats is where the game is played, and the noodles are just bland, really, and they're just trying to cover them to bulk out the meal.
Right.
You need the nutrient density becomes important, and the
Right.
satiety.
So then I know that Dr. Boz uses the GKI level when she works with her clients.
She actually does something different. She does what's known as the Dr. Boz
Ratio.
score, Dr. Boz ratio, the DBR. And we actually work with Dr. Boz to put the DBR onto our app. So you can choose the GKI or you can choose the DBR, depending on your preference. It's exactly the same thing. It's just another way of expressing a number. It's just math. Right. You can go two different ways. You can do that. I'm going to change it from milligrams per deciliter into millimoles and then divide it by that. Or you can just take your milligrams per deciliter, divide it by your ketones, and do a rough, easier number. And that one, it's easy to run into the head. And that's how she has her BOS score that she utilizes.
Right. Yeah. I really like the way that she simplifies things for people. She's making a huge difference in a place where people come to her when they're in a very state of poor health. So I have a lot of respect for all the work that she's doing.
And recently she just she started a program just before Christmas last year. Was the first time that she did it, and we worked with her, and she's actually bringing in some of her addiction background into it. And she did something quite unique that I haven't seen many other clinicians and doctors, and she utilized what's known as positive peer pressure. So she created a course, and so she groups people into small pods between 10 to 20 people, are in each separate pod. So you might have separate pods running on like that. each person in that pod can see everybody else's information. So they share the data. And what we worked is the first time it was just being shared through Zoom meetings and things like that. We actually built our app and our My Mojo Health platform to adjust so people could actually see the data together. And also around it, she models a learning management system, a course. So she guides people through this 21-day course. Where they're sharing their data in real time. So they're seeing that change happen. They're all working towards a singular goal as to what they're doing. She lives it to lead it because she's doing it exactly the same way with them when they go through their fasting with it. And then they give them the coping strategies. Is like when they think they're like, because people just starting fasting first, we were chatting just before this, you need time to build your fasting muscles up. You're not going to go into a 5-day straight away or even a 3-day. You might want to be 18 hours, then you get to 24 hours, and then you get to 36 hours, and you build it up, but over a period of time. But she gave this wonderful crutch that could help people through, and she uses tin sardines in olive oil, which is huge in omega-3s. Now, I don't like sardines, so I use mackerel instead. But you could eat these. And that would just be, so you've got your fast and you're kind of like doing this, then you add a little bit of fat and protein, and that then helps you go for the next level. And the changes that we saw on the blood glucose and the ketones levels was extraordinary. And then what she does is after that 21-day program, these people go off together in their group that they've made their friendships, and they continue to work together for success. And I look at it as a very scalable methodology in which to be utilized by a coach. And it was very unique. And I'm glad that we were able to partner with her with a paper and poster session that we put together.
That's awesome. Yeah, she's doing some incredible work. I'm excited that she's coming back to join us at KetoCon again this year.
And she's a great speaker, really good presentation, absolutely fantastic.
She's an incredible storyteller. I love the way she tells stories. And actually, when I read her book, I went back and listened to it on audio tape because I wanted to hear it in her voice or her telling the story, because she's such an incredible storyteller. So back to you. So what's in the future for Keto Mojo? Is there anything that you can talk about?
Yeah, so the future of Keto Mojo, as we kind of like seeing it, is, well, obviously we're opening up more countries is our goal, number one. For Gemma and I, we have the development of our foundation, the Ketogenic Foundation. It's a 501c3 nonprofit public charity, so that we can continue on and do more work. The role of our foundation is to fund clinical trials and studies and education in the efficacy and use of ketogenic therapies for the benefit of humankind. So we're trying to put more of our work into that, because Gemma and I, we don't have children. So the question is what's our legacy? That we made a buck, or we made a difference? And this is the goal as we see it. Going forward, is like, we want to be able to make this difference. We want to affect this metabolic change, and sometimes you have to push the levers of policy through the education. Sometimes you have to push the levers of getting more clinical trials out there, trying to fund it and giving people pilot grants so that they can have sufficient enough on that study to be able to go and maybe get the next grant, but maybe get that from the National Institute of Health with an NIH grant. So we try to work in that level. And then maybe introducing sometime, hopefully in the next 24 months, a couple of different new products that will also help people affect. I can't talk too much about them, but we've got a couple of interesting things that are in the works that we think will be quite exciting. But doing R&D and development of the products is always expensive and never works on the timeline that you would want it. I've already aspirationally busted through several timelines, and building the My Mojo Health platform was 5 times over my budget that I originally set. So it took a little bit longer than expected. And then of course it's getting people out of the knowledge of the My Mojo Health platform, that for doctors and clinicians and users have this new tool that is available to it, that they can link on in and see their not only just glucose and ketones, but their weights and their BMI and their carbs and their proteins and fats, and they can bring all of this into one area and utilize it, and it doesn't cost them a penny. And you don't even have to use my meter. You can put it in manually. I was like, hey, I want to develop this tool that people can use and can affect change. I'd like you to use my meter because I find everything, but you don't have to.
That's awesome. My meter is right here.
Mm-hmm. By the desk, yeah. Mine's right here. I have it on my desk as I've been testing through the day because I'm currently fasting, and this is a second fast. I did one just a couple of weeks ago. So there's always an echo. I call an echo from fasting, and that the depth of ketosis can get into a lot quicker when you're doing more often, and that echo stays with you a lot longer as well. I find my ketone numbers maintain elevated even after I've closed out from the fast.
I find the exact same thing. Exact same thing. That's amazing. Well, is there anything else you want to share about your presentation at KetoCon, or about your plans, what's going to be happening in the Keto Mojo booth at KetoCon?
Yeah, well, obviously come by and see us. We'll have the whole team there. We've got our mega booth. I think we're about the full 20-foot double booth that's going to be going on there. We'll be offering free ketone and glucose testing. We can also take you through the whole of the My Mojo Health platform and showcase through there. You can meet with our clinical educator, Jessica Ernst. She's our RD, our on-staff RD. So you can ask any technical questions if you want of her. I think about her as my cross-pollinator. So every year we try to get her to do maybe 1 or 2 different courses. So she's just finished the Metabolic Terrain Institute of Health's cancer course, where she was focusing on learning about that aspect. And then the goal is we look at each of the different disease states and the approaches of utilizing a well-regulated ketogenic diet. And I've got to realize that there is a spectrum of ketogenic diets. You've got your 4 1s and you've got your 3 1s, and you've got your glycemic index and your modified Atkins, and you've got your standards and your dirty keto and the rest of it. And so when we talk about that, realize that we're talking about spectrums. And what we like to do is with Jessica, as I get to go in and learn what each different disease state is doing, how we can take those tools and apply them and cross-pollinate to everybody else, so that the rising tide will lift all boats in that respect. And then obviously Gemma and myself, we will be there too. And Dr. Boz is joining us as well. So if you want to meet with Dr. Boz, she's going to be hanging out at different times, probably signing her books and the like. And you can also ask her questions about her 21-day challenge that she does as well, and meet up with her because she's a superstar.
Yes, she really is. I have to say that I think that this year your booth is going to be packed because I'm seeing a lot of ticket sales going to people who are working in the wellness space. So a lot of practitioners, and I mean, as well as, people who are coming to learn, but I'm seeing a lot of people using their credentials in their registrations, or their company name, or their health coaching business name. So I think you guys are going to be very busy, and we're really
other fun things that you can do is, like, if you want to test and try out a product, maybe Delta G ketones. I think Delta G might be there. We're good friends with them and the work that they're doing. You can go over, you can do a tiny little hit, and you take a measurement before for your baseline, do it and see what happens after 40 minutes, or 20 or 40 minutes. And you can kind of like get an idea as to, like, you can only manage what you measure, and here you can kind of like dial it in a little bit. That'll be a fun little thing to do.
Yeah, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. There's going to be a lot of fun things happening. So I'm really excited to have you guys there, and I'm especially excited to hear your perspective on the Entrepreneur Mastermind panel. I know that a lot of people are going to have questions for you, and that's totally unscripted, by the way. So we really, the format is very informal intentionally, so that people can, once they hear the story of how the individual panelists started their business and what they're doing today and what their goal is for their business, once that part of the entrepreneur panel is over and people start asking questions, it just gives everybody an opportunity to ask what's top of mind for them. So I really appreciate you spending the time doing that. It'll be a lot of fun and very entertaining and information, a lot of great information for people who are starting businesses.
Well, I've certainly made a lot of mistakes along the way, and I would like to help guide any other person who's thinking of doing it, not to make some of the same mistakes as me, but understand there's different ways you can approach things. You can approach it from an equity VC, I say venture capital, but I also think vulture capital a little bit there, as they'll take part of your life and your company. Or you can do like what we did, is we chose to debt finance and grow our company from cash flow from operations, which is a lot harder to do, but it also keeps you in command of your ship.
Right.
Yeah. So
I'm looking forward to hearing your experience working with Amazon. I know that there are a lot of people who have tried and struggled and have struggled and left, or tried and struggled and are still struggling working with Amazon. I had that experience with Ballistic Keto, and we had to just completely pull out. We just couldn't keep it up.
It's a massive amount of work.
Yeah.
And it's hard, and you've got to be prepared to be let down many, many times by Amazon. I can call, they shut me down one time, and we were losing $30,000 a day, and I'm looking at this going, I've got wages to make. And
sure.
When it takes somewhere in the region of like 3 days to get up back, and you suddenly realize there's $100,000 that's gone out the door, and to your competitors, and you've got to make your payroll. That becomes really, Amazon is a beast, but if you get to master it, like we have the #1 selling urinalysis strip in America. Most people don't even know that we have that. We have the bestseller badge, and we also have the #1 ketone meter on it. It can be beneficial, but it's really hard, and you're always on tenterhooks. Do you
feel like it's someone's full-time job?
Yes, I have somebody that monitors all the data on that one that is in there. If you're putting too much inventory in and they shut you down and you can't get access to your inventory, then what do you do? Right. And if that's your only channel and you don't have a secondary channel, now you have backup. So you need to build resiliency into your methodology. Like obviously we sell on Amazon, but we also sell on our own website. And I play whack-a-mole on eBay, because we just have eBay scalpers go on there. So we're on that, not to sell anything, but just to hold our position in the marketplace. But I have 3 different areas I could sell to if I wanted to.
Very interesting. Well, thank you, Dorian. I really appreciate your contributions, and I really appreciate your time today. I know that people are going to benefit from meeting you and hearing you talk today, and hearing you talk at KetoCon.
It's going to be great. Looking forward to it. See you there.
Thank you very much.